Greetings, America, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk. So, got a little bit of feedback, and in the interest of trying to make these videos a little bit shorter, um, I'm going to try and compartmentalize the things that I talk about, try to keep it to a singular topic. So, without further ado, let's get to some feedback. This is from video one, where I introduced myself and my goals and what I was hoping to achieve here, as well as a little bit about who I am. So, the first little bit of feedback I got was from a friend of mine who basically said, I miss being able to have civil debates with the general public. Now, one wrong word and somebody will completely blow a fuse. Okay, I can't disagree with that. It does seem that people are a bit hypersensitive. Thus, the overuse of the word and or terminology trigger or triggered or trigger words. Uh, yeah, I see your point. Um, that's also what I'm trying to get to is, whether it's a population in society or just, a small core group of people within society that are hypersensitive to everything because either somebody told them or convinced them or they believe in this hyper victimhood mentality where there's greater celebration in being a victim than there is in being someone who can overcome anything. And then I got some really good feedback from somebody. Until I get permission to use names, I'm not going to use names. Uh, I think the greatest barrier to civil discourse is social media and the walls and echo chambers people now build around themselves. Without a physical tribe in the form of a community you live and work amongst and effectively have to get along with, people are free to hold extreme views, almost free of consequence. Is civility still possible? Absolutely, but people will have to actively seek out interactions with people who have different views and still be okay with the fact that not everyone needs to or even should agree. I think that's going to be challenging. In this time of supposed tolerance and acceptance, it seems that some views and beliefs are more allowable than others. I'll stop there before I write a book here. Anyways, I enjoyed the video and I hope this outlet serves its purpose. Well, thank you for that response. And as I respond to that comment, it's hard to argue with that. Which is kind of why I started this whole video series in the first place, and I dubbed it Let's Talk. I don't know why it started, where it started, or how it started. I'm not even really sure if any of that matters. What I have noticed is within the past decade and some change, whether you want to attribute it to a political party, attribute it to a specific president, I don't think it really matters. The point is, in the 21st century, all right, it is now the second decade. Technically, wouldn't this be the third? Yeah, the third decade of the 2000 century. I think I said that right. Where, it feels like and it seems like all the progress we made in the 1900s, post the 1800s and the Civil War and all that, it seems like we're going backwards. And from my personal perspective, I personally feel, and I'm not saying I'm right, and feel free to challenge me on this. My nose itches every time I shower off. I feel like there seems to be a great persecution against white skin, as in a tremendous preponderance of white guilt. Now, whether that's true or not, it seems to be the dominant theme with media outlets, even social media, definitely Hollywood, or at least maybe that's how it's portrayed, and especially on major college campuses. And you have to keep in mind, I was born in '76, all right? The Civil Rights Act was 1964. The Voting Rights Act was 1965. That was 10 years before I was even born. That's like me looking at Senator Hirono from Hawaii and blaming her for Pearl Harbor. Secondly, I've noticed what seems to, or what appears to be an out and out assault against male virtues, whether it's gentlemanly behavior or just being a self recognized male and heterosexual for that matter. And here's what I will say as I respond to that comment. One thing I've noticed about America is we're very poor at moderation. We're very poor at easing into things. Pick your phrase, jumping off the deep end, whatever the case may be. I love this one. It's one of my personal favorites. Going full retard. Robert Downey Jr. said that as a character he portrayed in the movie Tropic Thunder. It's wonderfully, simple, and it makes so much sense because we don't do anything mildly in America. And I'll say this, if there were perceived grievances or real legitimate grievances, rather than slowly working towards a balance, it seems like we overcorrect. So if the gay community, and I think gay is good enough. I don't know why you need to segregate gay, lesbian. Because quite frankly, I don't know all the different titles, and I don't think that it matters. It's, okay, you're something other than heterosexual. Fine, good for you. Sincerely don't care. So I don't understand all the labels. If that makes me a bad person, well, it is what it is. There's been so much work to try to balance things out in the forms of acceptance, etc., where I don't know what happened, but now it's like we've overcorrected, and it's like instead of requesting acceptance, it's demanding tolerance and having very little tolerance in return. It's 2020, and we're still talking about black and white and systemic racism. From where I sit and the way I view the world, the systemic racism isn't the white society against everybody else. It's everybody else putting demands on just regular white people. I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area. I can't trace anybody in my family lineage that owned anybody. A lot of that could be my interpersonal family history, broken family, etc. But yeah, I just feel like we're going backwards. And whether that's a social trend, whether that's a social thing, I don't know. But it's very difficult to dispute that whole echo chamber tribal walls. And for whatever reason, I think that is what's interfering with civility. And quite frankly, I think one of the biggest things I've heard that made the most sense is the people crying the most foul seem to be white people. But whatever. I just don't get it. It's 2020, and we've literally fought like the Civil War, and we've literally fought in the courts to try to bring balance and acceptance to various issues. I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Daniel Tosh or somebody, but a relatively famous comedian made the remark that I grew up basically admiring and looking up to black athletes, and that's 100% true. I mean, where I grew up in the Chicagoland area, football, I had Walter Payton, I had Richard Dent, I had the Refrigerator Perry, all right? I had those guys to look forward to, all right? I had the Monsters of the Midway, and I had the Blues Brothers. That's the Bears, for those of you not tracking. The Chicago Bulls, I had, the quote-unquote dream team. The first three-peat with Jordan, Pippen, and all of them, and then the second three-peat, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, all of them, all of which were black. And it never mattered that they were black. They were phenomenal athletes, and it brought like a great sense of pride that they were crushing it in the NBA. Baseball, my God, we got the Sox and the Cubs. So, I mean, I had like Ozzie Guillen and whatnot on the White Sox, who's not even black, but he's Hispanic. I had Leon Durham, Lee Smith. God, I'm even Ernie Banks if you take it back that far. So we've always had in my lifetime black, brown, yellow, white, I don't know. We've had athletes to look up to and admire. So I feel we were less colorblind in the 20th century, and for whatever reason, since the turn of the decade in 2010, it seems like we've been digressing. Um, and you're absolutely right. These walls that have been going up to separate us and cause these echo chambers, I don't know that we're doing it. I don't know that if maybe we had the idea and other people are taking advantage of it, because they have everything to gain and nothing to lose. Uh, I don't know. I will say this: I just got done watching a Joe Rogan podcast with Dave Smith. I don't know who the hell Dave Smith is, but I will say this: he is wickedly smart. If you can, I think it's podcast 1562. I could be wrong, but Joe Rogan Experience with Dave Smith. Check it out. This guy Dave Smith is wickedly smart. That's pretty much it. I'd still like to see us break down those walls. I'd like to see us break free of those echo chambers. I'd like to see us have civil discussions because I think they can be had. You know, without going down a rabbit hole, before I left this security company that I was working for, I had an extremely civil conversation with a man who was a few years older than me. Black gentleman, not that it matters, but you know, since people want to see things in color, I'll provide a description. To me, he was just a man, but you know, people would probably describe him as a black man or African American man. And it was 2015, summertime, and we were sitting there talking, you know, just BSing. You know, I was standing my post. I had nowhere else to go. He was done for the day, and he was just sitting there chilling out. And long story short, he basically said that for the most part, he's about, you know, like 90+%, you know, Republican as far as like what he thinks and feels, you know, Second Amendment, free speech, small government, etc. But his grandmother was the descendant of a sharecropper. And I'm going to butcher this because I can't remember exactly what he said, but it had something to do with the land that she lived on, the land that she owned and occupied, something to do with her family lineage of being a sharecropper, where she received some sort of a government benefit. She partook in a government program that was only sponsored by the Democratic Party. And because of what that program did for his grandmother, he consistently had to vote Democrat, or at least for the representatives of that region. I don't remember if we got that specific. And it made sense. I understood. We were both extremely civil. We both appreciated, you know, the steps we've taken in life to forge our experiences and how we see the world. And it was completely civil. And that's why I'm 100% convinced that it is entirely possible to break down these walls. However, the leadership is normally defined by exemplary behavior, but our current leadership I can't necessarily say is exemplary. I mean, we've got Joe Biden walking around with signs that says office of the president-elect. There's no such thing. You know what a president-elect is? The exact same thing as a retired service member. Civilian. You don't have a title. It's an honorary title when they call you president-elect. It doesn't exist. But, you know, I feel like him and the Democratic Party, and even to some extent, some of the Republicans, you know, help construct these walls. And I don't mean the wall on the border. That's no pun intended. So maybe it's up to us to be better than them, because let's not forget, we're the ones that elect them. We're the ones that have all the power. They only have the power that we're willing to give them, because their sole purpose is to represent us, provided that we vote for them. The only downside is, if there's no one to oppose them and you don't vote, then they still win. I think. Somebody could fact check that and dispute me on it. So until then, that's all I got. We'll see you again here shortly.